Hey there, my Flow designers and creatives. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to another video in the Soup Ultimate Guide to Design Systems. In this video, we're going to go ahead and create the hero card, but for the experiences product. So without any further ado, let's get started. So basically what we're going to be creating is this section over here. It's basically the same card. It's just that we have a different element over here. Here we have the bottom player. We've got a little bit of a gradient, and I see some sort of a gradient here as well. So I'm going to apply the gradient a little bit later. But we have this over here. Now the player control is available only on this card. So I'm going to make this a local atom. All right. So we already have a lot of the elements. It should be pretty simple and straightforward. So let's get started. Now the first one is obviously the actual image thumbnail. Now we have this one, and both the images are going to be variants of each other. It's just that they're going to be different aspect ratios, right? So I'm going to go ahead and start off by creating that. So I'm going to press R on my keyboard and create a rectangle. And I'm going to try to get the value of this. All right. There we go. This should be fine. All right. This is looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead to Unsplash, and I'm going to just get a simple image. Let's search for something adventurous. So let's say adventurous, or just say walking tour, something like that, something simple. Yeah, I think this looks fine. So I'm just going to go ahead and click here, and it's going to go ahead and import that for me. All right, I'm going to copy this by pressing Ctrl C, delete this, and then I'm going to paste that over here. All right, looking pretty good. Now, of course, we want to go ahead and make sure we want to maintain that aspect ratio. So let's apply that plugin. So now come here to plugins. I'm going to cancel all of this. We're going to turn on lock aspect ratio and run that. And now, as you can see, it works. Oh, I think I have to select the main frame, and it works perfectly. Amazing. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove all the unnecessary layers. So I'm going to copy this image, delete the image itself, and then paste that over here. We have all of these additional layers which we will need, so I'm going to keep that as it is. And here, this is what we get. I'm going to go ahead and call this image. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and make this into a component. I'm going to cut that. I'm going to come here to our global atoms, and I'm going to paste that over here. Now both of these are components with the same name, and when you can select both of them, you can combine them as variants, and now we have this as a variant. Now in the property, I'm going to choose aspect ratio. All right. And we're going to have multiple of those. Now, of course, I'm not going to be making all of them because I'm not going to be making all the components. We're just going to be making some of them. And we have two of this. Now, I already know the ratio of this. This is 3:2. So I'm going to say 3:2. All right. You can actually check that out over here. And we want to make sure that we set this to 375, right? Actually, it's 3:4, not 3:2. All right. And this one is 125 by 98. All right. I don't really understand why it's in this weird aspect ratio, but that's how it is. All right. I'm going to go ahead and polish this documentation, make it look nice a little bit later. But for now, this is what we have. All right. So I'm going to make a copy of this, come down here to the final design, and I'm going to paste that over here. All right. I'm going to bring in the status bar, or we can go ahead and just copy both of these elements. I'm going to copy that, paste that over here. It's much faster, to be very honest. I'm going to set this to 390. There we go. We've got all of this. This is looking pretty good, right? And now we're going to go ahead and create this player. Now I'm going to start off with the icons. Now in the icons, if I go ahead and get the icon component, so if I come over here, I want to get the icon component. I'm going to go ahead and change the placeholder to be pause, right? I'm going to place that over here. Oh, actually we've got the icon button, not the icon component. I'm going to say icon button, bring that over here. All right. I'm going to set that to a non-elevated state, and then change the icon to the pause icon, right? And I'm also going to remove the background. And now I have this, and if I place it over here, you can see it's a 1-to-1 match. Now, the question is that this needs to be white. All right. And how do we make it white? Because we have two options, right? Either we can come here and change the color, right? So we can change the color to be content white, or we can come here and change the type itself to a dark mode variant, right? What is the right way to do it? And here things can get a little confusing. So let me explain things in detail. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come here to the variables and I'm going to change the naming convention a bit because it might be a little confusing when I'm going to explain this. Now let's understand. We have surface and we have our primary surface with white and black. All right. And then we have inverted, which is basically reversing the primary color, right? And inverted reverses the primary color. So we have an inverse of that. And the light mode and dark mode colors are different. Now here we have static. Now what I'm going to do is, in order to make things a little bit more clear, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call this primary hyphen static, right? Now the primary color is the same. And so in dark mode, it's also going to be the same. So I'm going to call it primary static. All right. This is going to be transparent. Same thing over here. Here we have content primary, which is gray 900. And here we have static. Static basically means in light mode and dark mode, it's going to be the same. So instead of calling it static, I'm going to call it primary hyphen static. Now here we have white. Now white is actually the inverse of primary. How do we know that? So instead of calling it white, I'm going to call it inverted. And since it's going to be static, I'm going to call it static. So this is basically going to be called content inverted static. Content primary is this. When we reverse the color, it becomes white, right? Now, if we just have inverted, it's going to be white color in light mode and a darker color in dark mode. But in this case, since static is going to be the same and it's going to be inverted, we're going to make it white for light mode and white for dark mode, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just change that naming convention a bit. Now I'm going to come here to the icon button, right? I'm going to come over here to the icon button, to the master component. Now let's understand something that's over here. Over here, this element that we have, this icon button, right? What we did here is that we didn't change the layer type to be dark mode, right? We had set it to auto. And the main reason is that we knew that this component or this variant, which is the elevated state, is always going to be looking like this, be it light mode or dark mode, right? So in order to explain that in a little bit better detail, I'm going to make a copy of this, right? And I'm going to get some text here as well. I'm going to copy this text and paste it over here. All right. So here we have a light mode variant and we have a dark mode variant, right? And both of them are going to look the same. But this thing that we have, I'm going to copy that, paste it over here. This is the non-elevated, right? So here I'm just going to call this elevated. And here this is going to be non-elevated. All right. We know that this component has a dark mode version itself, right? And if I can come over here, I can change that to dark mode. We know that this particular element has a dark mode variant. And this element always will look the same in both the modes, right? Which is why we came over here and we said primary static, right? The surface is going to be called surface primary static. But over here, we just called it surface primary, which means that this particular variant has two modes, right? And this one has only one mode. So the point I'm trying to say is when we have a variant or a component that looks the same on both the modes, we need to assign colors, right? We need to assign static colors. So I'm just going to say static colors. But over here, we need to assign dynamic colors, right? Makes complete sense, right? Now what that means is in our case over here, right? We know that this component can have a light mode version or a dark mode version, which means we don't want to go ahead and change the color over here, right? We don't want to change that. When we are designing this component, we are going to come here and change the mode to dark mode, which means when the whole app is in light mode, we are going to force the dark mode variant in the light mode, and it's going to be the dark mode variant in dark mode as well, right? Which is why we are not coming here and changing the color. We are going to keep the colors as it is. The main rules apply, right? The rule is if there is a dark mode variant, we will use dynamic colors. This is the principle that we're going to follow. And now if we are ever going to use the dark mode variant in light mode, we are going to force the dark mode variant. So that's why this icon is now going to have the dark mode variant. Now, how will engineers know this? It's very simple. If engineers come here to dev mode, they can see here that in the modes, there is a token and that it's a dark mode token, right? They know that. Maybe I'm going to make a duplicate of this, all right? And I'm going to reset this to be the normal light mode, all right? And I turn this on. So here, if you see here, in the light mode, the regular version, we don't see any information. But the moment I select the other one, we can see here there is a new section called as modes and it's the dark mode variant. So that's something to keep in mind. Now I'm going to go ahead and make a duplicate of this. Here I'm going to actually go ahead and select the play icon. And here I'm going to choose the speaker icon. All right. We're going to add a Boolean property because the speaker icon is not always going to be visible, right? So that's fine. I'm going to move this over to the side. All right. Now we have some spacing issues, which I'm going to look at in a moment. But I'm also going to go ahead and create these lines. So I'm going to press R on my keyboard and just create like a line. I'm going to set the value over here and also go ahead and set it to 8. I want the gaps to be 8. So I'm going to maybe just change the color of this to black so we can see things a little bit more detail, or maybe red. All right. I'm going to go ahead and select dim both, press Shift A to auto layout, and then select both of them. And then just start duplicating things until I get like a good number. It doesn't really matter because these can be as many as we want. I'm going to press Shift Enter. Actually press Enter and set that to fill container. All right. And then I can reduce the width of this. All right. Now, if I place it over here exactly, the gap here seems to be 31 for some weird reason. All right. And we're going to fix all of that in a second. And this is what we have. Okay. Now, looking at the distance over here we have a distance of 9. I don't really like that. So I'm going to bring it down a single pixel so that we get a distance of 8. And on the top and bottom, I'm going to add a padding of 8, right? And I'm going to move them together. So now we can see that all of them are touching each other, all right? But as you can see here, still the alignment seems to be a bit off, all right? Here it is 31, here it is 20 for some reason. Now what I'm going to do is, because we used 16 pixels over here, I'm going to ensure that we have 16 pixels here as well. So I'm going to move both of this towards the left. So that is 16. All right. Now I understand that they want these to align over here. All right. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, move this all the way to the left. All right. And maybe for now, I'm just going to select these two, press Shift A to auto layout. Okay. And then select this, press Shift A to auto layout, and I'm just going to add a little bit of a color so we can see what's actually going on. All right, there we go. Now I'm going to add 16 pixels on the left and 16 pixels on the right. All right, there we go. That is looking pretty good. And I'm going to move this over to the right side, and I'm going to set this to fill container. All right, so now we have that 16, 16. But we want to add that additional gap over here so that we align it with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a gap of 8 inside this. All right. So here we have a gap of 8 plus an additional 16 over here, right? So this is 16 and then plus 8, and that is just to align it with this. All right. And now if I set the opacity back to 100, in fact, maybe I'm just going to remove it. This is what we sort of get. Maybe move it outside. This is basically what we get. And I can increase or decrease this, and this works, right? But there's something else that we have to do. We also have this bottom padding, right? So I'm going to come down over here, and I'm going to make sure that we align it to the bottom. And I'm going to start adding some top and bottom padding, right? So I'm going to start adding top and bottom padding. Actually, maybe I should have done it the other way around. Move this up. All right. And maybe we can add that fill again, so we can see things in much more detail. And I'm going to choose 16. Let's see if 16 works. 16 doesn't work. I'm going to choose 24. And 24 seems to be the right number, right? So when I choose 24, it fits well. And we also want to have 24 on the top. Okay. Amazing. Set this to 100%. Or actually, maybe we don't even need it, right? Now here we have these bars. All right. Now, of course, these are surfaces. And we know that be it light mode, be it dark mode, this component will always be white in color, right? It's not going to be black color anywhere. It's never going to have a black color. It's always going to be white color, right? And so we can go ahead and apply a token, which is a static token. So I'm going to come over here to the fill, and I'm going to choose a surface, and we're going to choose surface primary static, right? And that applies that over here. Now we also have these as well, all right? And I'm going to apply a surface token again, and I'm going to choose the transparent token. Now the problem here is that it adds the black color transparent token, right? We want it to be a white color transparent token, right? So let's go ahead and create a variable for that really quickly. So here in surfaces, we have primary, we have inverted, we have primary static, and we have transparent. So now what I'm going to do is, because our primary surface is white in color, all right, I'm going to create a brand new variable, all right. I'm going to bring this down over here, okay. Now our primary is white, which means this one is going to be inverted. So this will eventually become inverted transparent, okay. And this is going to be called primary transparent, right? Hope that makes sense. The reason I'm calling this primary transparent is because I want a white color transparency. So if it is not white, the opposite of white is black. So black becomes inverted and it's still a transparent layer. So I'm going to call it transparent. I'm also going to come here and choose the white color. Of course, I cannot map it to the reference token over here. I actually have to manually enter it. And so I'm going to click on this and then set this also to 55. All right. And here also I'm going to set that to 55. So now I can select all of these other tokens, all of these other layers, and I can choose primary transparent, right? There we go. And the transparency layer is pretty much fine. Maybe we can reduce that down to like 50. Let's see if 50 works. So I'm going to open that up again. Here I'm going to set that to 50. Here also I'm going to set that to 50. And yeah, maybe we can set it to a little bit even more smaller number, like 40 and 40. All right. And yeah, 40 seems to be looking great. All right. Amazing. Now, the last thing is that we want to add this gradient. But before we add the gradient, let's actually make the component. So I'm going to bring all of this over here. I'm going to, I'm going to select all of this. All right. And then select all the layers. We're going to select all the layers. I'm going to press Shift A to auto layout. All right. And we're going to call this hero card, or maybe call it experiences hero card. All right. And there we go. And of course, we want to make sure that the scaling works perfectly. So I'm first of all going to make this into a master component. I'm going to make an instance of this. And if I scale it, as you can see, nothing happens. So just make sure that everything is working fine. So here, left and right, perfect. Here, left and right, perfect. Down here, we want it to be left and right. All right. And also we want to align it to the bottom. All right. And then here, the actual image itself, the image component, we're going to set that to fill container, right? And now this works. Now our original one, we want to set that to 375. And then this is going to be 390. So I'm going to go cut that and then bring that over here to light mode. Okay. And now let's see if everything works in dark mode. We paste it and I think everything works fine in dark mode as well, right? Amazing. Now, the only thing left is that we want to add a little bit of a gradient over here, all right? Now, unfortunately, we can not add gradient tokens yet, which means we need to add gradient styles, right? So we need to create a gradient color style. So I'm going to go ahead and add a fill over here. I'm going to apply a gradient, all right? I'm going to make it a black gradient. One of the stops, I'm going to make that 0. The top, I'm going to make that 0. And the bottom, I'm going to add a gradient of 30. I've already played around with these values, so I know what they are. Okay. Now, we can choose to go ahead and create a color style for the gradient, but I'm not going to do that, right? Ideally, I want to do this in the variable, and creating a color style is just going to make it a little bit messy. But you can definitely go ahead and create a color style if you want, right? But I'm not going to. Now, the other thing that we want to do over here is, even for this top part, we want to add that gradient. So I'm going to press Shift A and actually combine both of them because I want the gradient to have the same height. Now it suddenly broke everything. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to click on that frame that I made, the auto layout, and just make sure we set that back to absolute position again, and then everything, should work fine. Okay, set this to left and right. All right, and let's see if this works. Looks like it's not working. So here actually we need to select both of these and set this to fill container. And now this should be working. Okay, it's working, perfect. And now for this again, I'm going to add that fill gradient. I'm going to go ahead and add the direction. I'm going to make this black and black. The top one is going to be 30 and the bottom one is going to be 0. All right, so there we go. Now, one of the things that I want to do is I want to make sure that our naming conventions are really nice. So anywhere where we have something called frame, we're going to change that to wrapper. I'm going to call this wrapper, 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 wrapper. Now, in fact, this is actually going to be an atom, right? So I'm going to go pull this out for a second, make this into a component. This is going to be our local atom. I'm going to call this player and then take a duplicate of that and then throw that inside. And of course, here we want to select the player and we want to change that to be an absolute position and move that to the bottom. Make sure we choose left and right. And let's test this again. And yes, it is working fine. Great. So now we have this local atom. We added this gradient on top, which we can see here in all the places. I'm going to do the exact same thing here as well. So I'm going to go to the master component. All right. I'm going to select both of them, press Shift A, set that to absolute position, set it to top. And first of all, we want to move it to the top. And then we want to set it to left and right. And then we can press enter to select both of the children elements, set that to fill container. And let's just check if it's working. Yes, it works perfectly. And now we can add the gradient as well. So we can add the gradient. We can set this to 30%. This can be black. We can set that to 0. And this is looking pretty good. Amazing. All right. So now the only thing left for us to do is to come here to the final design. We just have to pick up these and document them. So I'm going to press Ctrl X. I'm going to come down here to the card. We just call it cards. Why just card? All right. I'm going to paste that over here. What I will do is I'm going to change the name of this. I'm going to call this stays and then make a duplicate of this and call this experiences. Okay. And I'm going to just select both of this and duplicate them. I'm going to select this one, cut that, paste that over here. And here, of course, I'm actually going to set this to hug contents and maybe add 50 on the top and bottom. All right, I'm going to set this to fill container, make a copy of that, paste the dark mode version, which is fine. And we're going to create a new local atom over here. I'm going to drop the player over here, cut that, and I'm going to go call this player. All right. Now, one last thing that we want to do is here in the master component, in the experiences, I'm going to select this icon that we have, which is basically the speaker icon. I'm going to come here to the layer and add a Boolean property because sometimes we might not have the player. Now, the reason I'm not able to do that is because I'm doing it in an instance. I have to go back here to the master, click here, and in the layer, click here and say speaker. We're going to say true. Okay. And then I'm going to click on this and then click on the plus, expose the instances. So I want to expose the player. All right. We don't want to expose anything else. We'll leave that as it is. So now if I take a duplicate and just bring this around outside, I have the speaker and I can turn that on and off, and you can see that turns on and off over here. Right. And that is looking pretty good. And if I just scale this, everything works fine. It looks beautiful, amazing, and it's looking pretty good. Do not worry about the status bar. As you can see, it's scaling a little differently, but that doesn't really matter. The phone will actually take care of that. So in our case, this is absolutely fine and it looks amazing, right? So now if you come here to the final design, we have this. A quick thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come here to the cards and I'm just going to change the name. So this is going to be called the Experiences Hero Card. And this is going to be called the Stays Hero Card. And you can choose whatever naming convention you want, but I think this is fine, right? And this is our hero card, and I think this is looking pretty good. Alright, so that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. If you did, let me know in the comment sections down below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more amazing, awesome content. I'll see you guys in the next video. So then take care and bye-bye.